The heart monitor flatlined at 11:47 p.m., and the sound that came out of me wasn't human. It was something ripped loose from the bottom of my chest, something that had been building for 29 years and finally broke free in that sterile room that smelled like bleach and dying flowers. Grandpa's hand was still in mine, paper-thin skin sliding over bones that felt suddenly weightless. I couldn't let go. I couldn't move. I just stared at his face, at the way his mouth had gone slack, the way the pain that had lived in his eyes for months was finally gone. And I hated myself for feeling relief mixed in with the grief because he wasn't suffering anymore, but that meant he was gone and I was alone. My name's Ethan Carter. 29 years old, 6'2", built like the ranch work I've done since I was 12. Everyone always said I had Grandpa's shoulders, Grandpa's hands, Grandpa's stubborn jaw. They never said I had my father's anything, and that was fine by me. Because my father was standing in the corner of the room, arms folded, staring at the dead man in the bed like he was looking at a broken-down tractor he'd been waiting to sell for scrap. He hadn't cried. Not once. Not when the cancer came back the last time, not when Grandpa couldn't walk anymore, not when he pissed himself in the truck on the way to chemo and laughed about it like it was the funniest damn thing in the world. And not now. I felt his hand on my shoulder, heavy, fake warm. "It's over, son," he said, voice low, almost gentle. "He's not in pain anymore." I wanted to shrug him off, but I didn't have the strength. I just nodded, throat raw, tears dripping off my chin onto Grandpa's knuckles. Dad squeezed once, then let go. "We should let the nurses do their job." He was already moving toward the door. I stayed another 20 minutes. Held Grandpa's hand until it went cold. Whispered things I should have said when he could still answer back. Told him I'd keep the ranch going. Told him I'd fix the north fence like I promised. Told him I loved him so damn much it hurt. When I finally walked out, Dad was in the hallway on his phone, voice low, head turned away like he didn't want me to hear. "Yeah, he's gone now. It's done. I'll be there tomorrow morning. Just have the papers ready." He hung up when he saw me. Slid the phone in his pocket real smooth. "Funeral home," he said before I could ask. "They need decisions fast." I didn't believe him. Not for a second. But I was too hollowed out to fight. We drove back to the ranch in silence. Dad in his rented Lexus that still smelled like new leather and his cologne, something sharp and expensive he never wore when he lived here. Me in Grandpa's old Ford, the one with the cracked seats and baler twine holding the muffler on. The same truck that taught me how to drive when I was 14, Grandpa riding shotgun with a thermos of coffee and endless patience. Dad had shown up 6 months ago, right after the diagnosis got terminal. Rolled in wearing a suit that cost more than our yearly hay sales, talking about making things right, and being here for his old man. Grandpa let him stay in the guest room, the one nobody ever used, but he never warmed up. Never trusted him. I saw it in the way his jaw tightened every time Dad started talking about modernizing the ranch or liquidating assets to pay for care. Dad hadn't been home in 23 years. Not since he left Mom crying on the porch with a 6-year-old kid clinging to her leg. He sent birthday cards with $50 bills for a while, then stopped. Built some real estate empire in Dallas, married a woman 10 years younger than him, had 2 new kids he actually showed up for. And now here he was, acting like the prodigal son returned. We buried Grandpa 3 days later. Small service. Just the way he wanted. Ranch hands, neighbors, a few old veterans from the VFW who still alive to tell stories about him in Korea. I wore the only suit I owned, the one Grandpa bought me for Mom's funeral when I was 15. Dad wore Italian wool and sunglasses even though it was overcast. He gave the eulogy. Stood up there in front of everyone and talked about my father, my hero, and the lessons he taught me about hard work and family. I sat in the front row with my hands clenched so tight my nails cut half-moons into my palms. He didn't cry then either. Afterward, back at the house, people brought casseroles and pies and quietly got drunk on the bourbon Grandpa kept for special occasions. Dad worked the room like a politician. Handshakes, back slaps, promises to keep the ranch in the family. I slipped away to the barn. Sat on an overturned bucket and stared at the stall where Grandpa's horse Dusty used to live. Dusty died 2 years ago and Grandpa never got another. Said one was enough for a lifetime. That's where Dad found me an hour later. "Ethan." He leaned against the doorframe, hands in his pockets. "We need to talk." My stomach dropped. I knew that tone. Same one he used on the phone in the hospital hallway. "Lawyers coming tomorrow," he said. 9 a.m. "We'll read the will, sign whatever needs signing, get everything sorted." "Tomorrow?" My voice cracked. "Jesus Christ, Dad. We just put him in the ground." He wouldn't want things dragging out. Dad's smile didn't reach his eyes. Practical man, your grandpa. You know that. I stood up slow. He was my grandpa too. Something flickered across Dad's face. Annoyance, maybe? Or calculation. Of course. Look, I know this is hard. But there's a lot to handle. Taxes, the land, the mineral rights. Mineral rights? I stepped closer. Since when do you give a damn about the mineral rights? He held up his hands. Hey, I'm just trying to help. Someone has to be the adult here. I laughed, bitter and sharp. Yeah, 23 years too late for that. He dropped the act then. Eyes went cold. You think you're the only one who lost him? I was his son. You were the guy who sent a check every Christmas and called it parenting. We stared at each other. The barn smelled of hay and old leather and grief. Finally he sighed. Get some rest. Big day tomorrow. He walked out. I didn't sleep. At 3 a.m. I went into Grandpa's room. My room now, I guess. Everything still smelled like him. Old Spice and coffee and the faint sweetness of the chewing tobacco he quit 10 years ago but never stopped missing. His bed was still unmade from the last morning he'd been strong enough to get up. I sat on the edge and opened the nightstand drawer. Inside was the picture of him and Grandma on their wedding day, the .38 revolver he kept for rattlesnakes, and a yellow legal envelope with my name on it in his shaky handwriting. My heart stopped. I'd never seen it before. Hands shaking, I opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper and a small brass key. The paper read, Ethan, if you're reading this, I'm gone and that bastard has already started moving. Don't trust a word he says. Everything I have is yours. Always was. The key opens the safe deposit box at First National. Number 187. Go tomorrow. Before he does. There's things in there he'll kill to keep hidden. And things that'll ruin him if they see daylight. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner. I love you, boy. More than these old hands could ever show. I read it 3 times. Then I heard footsteps in the hallway. Soft. Careful. Dad's bedroom door creaked open. I shoved the letter and key into my pocket just as his shadow passed the doorway. He stopped. Looked in. I pretended to be asleep on the bed, heart hammering so loud I was sure he could hear it. After an eternity he moved on. But I saw what he was carrying. A flashlight. And Grandpa's old lockbox, the one that was supposed to be in the study. The one that had been locked for 15 years. He was heading for the barn. And I knew, with a sick, cold certainty, that whatever game he was playing had already started. And Grandpa had just handed me the first move. I waited until the house went dead quiet again, until even the crickets outside seemed to hold their breath. Then I slipped out the back door in nothing but socks, the brass key and Grandpa's letter burning against my chest like they were alive. The yard was silver under the half moon. The barn sat 200 yards off, a black shape against blacker sky. I could see the faint glow of Dad's flashlight moving behind the cracked windows, like a firefly trapped in there. I didn't go straight in. I circled wide, stayed in the shadows of the cottonwoods, and came up along the corral fence. The barn side door was open just enough for a man to slide through. I eased it wider, slow, praying the hinges wouldn't scream. They didn't. Inside smelled like dust and old motor oil and the ghost of horses. Dad was in the tack room at the far end, back to me, kneeling in front of the lockbox he'd carried out here. He had it open. Papers were spread on the floorboards around him like playing cards. I couldn't see his face, but I could see his shoulders moving fast, the way they do when a man's excited and trying not to show it. I stepped closer, boots silent on the packed dirt. 1 step. 2. He froze. I froze. He didn't turn around, but his voice cut through the dark like a blade. You should be asleep, Ethan. My mouth went dry. Couldn't. He started gathering papers, quick but careful, stuffing them into a manila folder. Go back to bed. This doesn't concern you. Pretty sure Grandpa thought different. That made him turn. His eyes were bright, almost feverish. The polite mask he'd worn since the funeral was gone. In its place was something hungry. Some things are complicated, son. Grown-up complicated. You wouldn't understand. I took another step. Try me. He laughed, short and ugly. You still think this place is some kind of shrine. 3,000 acres of rocks and starving cattle. You think sweat makes it holy. He tapped the folder against his thigh. Your grandpa was stubborn, not smart. He could have been rich 10 times over. Oil leases. Fracking rights. Developers begging to turn this dirt into subdivisions. But no. Pride. Legacy. He spat the word like it tasted bad. I felt my fists curl. He kept it because it was ours. It's dirt, Ethan. Dirt and debt. He stood up, folder tucked under one arm. I'm saving you from drowning in it. Saving me? My voice cracked on the laugh. You haven't given a damn about me since I was 6. His jaw worked. For a second I thought he might actually feel something. Then the mask slid back on, softer this time. I wasn't a good father. I know that. But I'm trying to be a good son now. For him. He nodded toward the house, toward the fresh grave on the hill. Let me handle this. He started past me. I didn't move. He had to stop or walk through me. Get out of the way, Ethan. Show me what's in the folder. He stared at me for a long beat. Then he smiled, small and cold. You want to see? He opened the folder and pulled out a single sheet. Held it up so the flashlight lit the letterhead. A real estate development company. One I'd never heard of. But the logo was slick, corporate, Dallas addresses. And across the top, in bold, offer TO purchase, Carter Ranch, $42.8 million USD. My knees almost gave out. $42 million. Dad watched my face like he was feeding on it. That's what this land is really worth once the mineral rights are separated and the conservation easements are dissolved. That's what your grandpa sat on for 30 years because he wanted to die poor and proud. His voice dropped. I'm not letting his stupidity bury us both. I couldn't find words. 42 million. I'd spent my whole life fixing fence and pulling calves in the mud for pennies, and the whole time. He stepped around me, heading for the door. Lawyers still coming at 9, he said over his shoulder. Sign the papers, walk away a millionaire before you're 30. Or fight me and end up with nothing but calluses and memories. He was almost gone when I finally spoke. You forged his signature. He stopped. Didn't turn. That offer's dated 3 weeks ago, I said. My voice sounded far away like someone else talking. Grandpa couldn't even hold a pen 3 weeks ago. Silence stretched tight. Then Dad laughed quiet. Smart boy. Always were. He walked out. I stood there shaking, rage and grief and something colder twisting together in my gut. I didn't sleep after that either. At dawn I drove into town. First National Bank opened at 8. I was waiting at the door when Mrs. Delgado unlocked it, still wearing yesterday's clothes and 2 days of beard. She knew me. Knew Grandpa. Didn't ask questions, just led me to the vault like we were both in a funeral procession again. Safe deposit box 187 was long and flat. I slid the brass key in with fingers that wouldn't stop trembling. Inside were 3 things. First, a thick manila envelope sealed with red wax and Grandpa's initials pressed deep. Second, a flash drive in a plastic case. Third, a single photograph. Dad, maybe 30 years old, standing with a man I didn't recognize in front of an oil rig. Both of them smiling. On the back, in Grandpa's handwriting, 1997, the year he stole from all of us. I took everything, signed the log, and walked out into the sunlight feeling like I'd just pulled a pin on a grenade. Back at the ranch, Dad's Lexus was gone. A note on the kitchen table in his neat, slanted writing. Took care of some details in Dallas. Be back tonight. Don't do anything stupid. I locked the door behind me, sat at Grandpa's desk, and opened the sealed envelope. Inside were deeds, original deeds, going back to 1892. Oil and gas leases that had never been recorded. A trust document naming me sole beneficiary of something called the Carter Family Mineral Trust, dated the day I was born. And a letter longer this time. Ethan, if you're reading this, I failed to protect you from him one last time. I'm sorry. Your father tried to steal this land once before. 1997. Took loans against mineral rights he never owned, forged my name, nearly bankrupted us. I paid the debts. Kept it quiet. Thought shame might keep him away. It didn't. He's been circling again. Quiet this time. Through shell companies and old partners. I've been fighting him in court for 2 years, quiet like so you wouldn't worry. But courts are slow and I'm running out of time. Everything real is in your name now. The trust. The unrecorded leases. The proof he's been siphoning royalties that were never his. The flash drive has the bank records. The forged documents. The offshore accounts. He thinks he's selling the ranch tomorrow. Let him try. You don't have to destroy him, son. Just don't let him win. I love you bigger than these Texas skies. Burn this if you need to. Or use it. Your choice. Always was. I sat there until the words blurred. Then I plugged the flash drive into Grandpa's ancient desktop. Files. Hundreds of them. Wire transfers. Emails. Scanned forgeries with Dad's signature right next to Grandpa's shaky one. A paper trail that started in 1997 and never really stopped. And at the very bottom, a video file labeled insurance. I clicked it. Grandpa's face filled the screen, gaunt from the cancer but eyes still sharp. He was sitting right where I was sitting now. If you're watching this, Ethan, he said, voice raspy but steady, then I'm gone and that son of a bitch is making his move. Listen close. He laid it all out. Every dirty deal. Every lie. Every dollar Dad had stolen over 25 years. And then he looked straight into the camera and said the words that turned my blood to ice. There's one more thing in the box, boy. A second key. It opens a locker at the Greyhound station in Amarillo. Inside is enough to put him in prison for the rest of his life. Or enough to make him disappear forever, your call. The video ended. I stared at the blank screen for a long time. Then I heard tires on gravel. Dad was home early. His car door slammed. Footsteps on the porch. The doorknob rattled, locked. His key scraped in the lock. I closed the laptop. Slid the flash drive into my pocket next to the second key I just found taped to the bottom of the safe deposit box. The door opened. Dad stepped inside, smiling that same plastic smile he'd worn at the funeral. Ready to be rich, son? I smiled back. I was ready for something all right. But it sure as hell wasn't signing his papers. If you're feeling this rage building in your chest the same way I did, hit that like button right now. Subscribe and ring the bell because tomorrow I start fighting back and you're not gonna believe what I do next. He walked in like he already owned the place, suit jacket slung over one arm, tie loosened, that same smug half-smile he'd worn since the funeral. The late afternoon sun cut through the kitchen blinds and painted gold stripes across his face, made him look almost human for a second. Almost. I was leaning against the counter, arms folded, the flash drive and the second key burning a hole in my front pocket. The manila envelope with the real deeds was locked in Grandpa's gun safe now, combination only I knew. Dad tossed his jacket on the chair. Lawyers running 5 minutes behind. Traffic out of Dallas was murder. He went to the fridge, pulled out one of Grandpa's Lone Stars like he had any right, cracked it open. You look like hell, Ethan. You sleep at all? Some, I lied. He took a long pull, eyed me over the bottle. You're not still sulking about the offer, are you? 42 million, son. That's life-changing money. You could travel. Buy a place on the coast. Hell, buy 10 places. I didn't answer. Just watched him. He set the beer down, wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. Look, I get it. This ranch is all you've ever known. But clinging to it out of sentiment is how men go broke. Grandpa proved that. Grandpa died owning every acre free and clear, I said. My voice was calm. Too calm. Pretty sure that's the opposite of broke. Dad's smile thinned. He also died with a reverse mortgage on the equipment and a hospital bill that'll eat the cattle herd twice over. You think dying stubborn makes you a hero? I think dying honest does. He stared at me a beat longer, then laughed under his breath and checked his watch. Whatever. Lawyer'll be here any minute. Papers are in the car. All you gotta do is sign and we wire your half by end of week. Easy. My half, I repeated. That's right. I pushed off the counter, took 2 slow steps toward him. Tell me something, Dad. When you forged his name the first time, back in '97, did you at least feel bad? Or was it just business? The air in the room changed. Went still and sharp, like the second before a fist fight. Dad's eyes narrowed. I don't know what you think you. Safe deposit box 187, I cut in. Ring any bells? His face didn't move, but something behind his eyes did. A flicker. A calculation. I've been to the bank, Dad. I've seen the trust. The unrecorded leases. The video Grandpa left. I pulled the flash drive out, held it up between 2 fingers. Every transfer. Every offshore account. Every lie you told a judge. It's all here. He looked at the little black stick like it was a loaded gun. Then he smiled again, softer this time. Almost sad. Ethan, son, you don't want to do this. Pretty sure I do. He took a step toward me. You think you're the first person to wave evidence around and threaten to call the cops? That drive is a copy. I have the originals locked up in Dallas. Lawyers, judges, men who golf with the Attorney General. You drop that bomb, it blows up in your face, not mine. You'll spend the next 10 years in court while I sell this place out from under you anyway. I didn't flinch. Maybe. Or maybe I drive to Amarillo tonight, open locker 47 at the Greyhound station, and mail everything to the FBI, the IRS, and every newspaper between here and Austin. Grandpa said there's enough in there to put you away for 25 years. Federal pen. No parole. His smile vanished. We stood there 2 feet apart, breathing the same air that still smelled faintly of Grandpa's coffee. Then he moved fast. Hand shot out for the drive. I was faster. I sidestepped, caught his wrist, twisted hard the way Grandpa taught me when we used to wrestle in the yard. Dad grunted, swung with his left. I ducked, drove my shoulder into his chest and slammed him back against the fridge. Magnets and old sale barn flyers rained down around us. He was stronger than he looked. City soft but still mean. We crashed into the table, knocked chairs flying. He got his forearm under my chin, tried to choke me out. I kneed him in the thigh, felt it go numb, then hammered an elbow into his ribs. We broke apart, panting. Blood dripped from his lip. My knuckles stung. He straightened his shirt, smoothed his hair like we were still civilized. You want to play it this way? His voice was low, dangerous. Fine. He reached into his jacket, slow, and pulled out a different flash drive, bright red. Held it up. This one has a video too, he said. You at 16, driving that stolen side-by-side across the county line with a case of beer in the back. You at 19, selling grandpa's pain pills to pay for that transmission you blew drag racing. You at 22, beating the hell out of Tommy Rourke behind the feed store because he called your mom a whore. He smiled cold. Sheriff never pressed charges on any of it because grandpa asked nice. But the footage still exists. One phone call and you're a felon, Ethan. No ranch. No money. Just a record that follows you forever. I felt the floor tilt under me. He stepped closer. I didn't come here to fight you, son. I came to give you a future. Sign the damn papers. We both walk away rich. Or I burn everything down and piss on the ashes. Headlights swept across the windows. The lawyer's car crunched up the gravel. Dad wiped the blood from his lip, tucked the red drive away. Decision time. I stared at him, chest heaving. Then I smiled. You forgot one thing, I said. I reached behind my back, slow, and pulled Grandpa's old .38 from my waistband. The one from the nightstand. Cocked it loud enough for the sound to fill the whole kitchen. Dad's eyes went wide. Grandpa taught me two things, I said. Never draw a gun unless you're ready to use it, and never bluff a bluffer. I aimed it square at his chest. Take your jacket. Take your fake papers. Get in your car and drive away. You come back on this land again, I shoot you for trespassing and let the coyotes have what's left. He believed me. I saw it in the way the color left his face. The doorbell rang. I didn't move the gun. Tell your lawyer the deal's off, I said. Tell him Grandpa changed his mind. Dad swallowed hard. You'll regret this. Already got plenty of those. One more won't matter. He backed toward the door, hands up. Opened it with the lawyer standing there, confused smile fading when he saw the revolver. Meetings canceled, Dad said, voice shaking just enough to taste. Family emergency. He walked out. The lawyer looked at me, looked at the gun, decided he didn't need the work that bad. Got back in his car and left tire tracks all the way to the road. I stood in the doorway a long time, gun still in my hand, watching the Lexus disappear in a cloud of dust. Then I closed the door, locked it, and slid down to the floor with my back against it. I was shaking so hard the revolver clicked against the tile. I had just drawn a line in blood and dirt. And tomorrow when he came back, because he would come back, I had to be ready to cross it. Because this wasn't over. Not even close. He still had the red drive. And I still had locker 47 in Amarillo. One of us was going to end up destroyed. And I already knew which one it was going to be. But God help me, I wasn't sure I'd survive it either. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the porch with the .38 across my lap and the dogs pressed against my legs, watching the road for headlights that never came. The wind smelled like rain coming, the kind of storm that tears tin off barns and turns caliche roads into rivers. I welcomed it. Let it wash the blood out of the kitchen. Let it drown the sound of my father's voice in my head. At 4:17 a.m. I made coffee strong enough to strip paint, drank 2 cups black and loaded the truck. The flash drive, the real deeds, Grandpa's letters, the second key, everything went into a waterproof ammo can bolted under the seat. The revolver rode on the dash like a co-pilot. I was in Amarillo before the sun cleared the Caprock. The Greyhound station smelled like piss and burnt coffee. Locker 47 was in the back corner, paint chipped, dented like someone had taken a crowbar to it once upon a time. My hands shook so bad I dropped the key twice. Inside was a black Pelican case the size of a briefcase. I carried it out to the truck, locked the doors and opened it on the seat. Jesus Christ. Stacks of $100 bills vacuum sealed. A burner phone. A passport in my name, my face, but the last name was Carter, Grandpa's handwriting on the application. And 3 fat expandable folders labeled fraud, tax evasion and witness statements. On top sat one more letter in Grandpa's shaky scrawl. Last one, kid. If you open this, I'm prouder than I ever managed to say out loud. The money is clean. Offshore cleanup I paid for with the first lease I never told your father about. Enough to fight or disappear whichever the day demands. The folders go to 3 different people the day he forces your hand. Addresses are in the phone. But if you can end this without courts and cages, End it? Some debts aren't settled in courtrooms. Either way you walk free. That's the only thing that ever mattered to me. Live loud, love hard, and never let that son of a bitch dim your light. I'll be waiting on the other side of whatever comes next, coffee on, telling Dusty you finally grew into those shoulders. All my love, forever. I cried in the parking lot of a Greyhound station at 6:42 a.m. like a damn child. Big ugly sobs that hurt my ribs and fogged the windows. When it passed, I felt hollowed out and refilled with something clear and sharp and unbreakable. I knew what I had to do. I drove home through the storm. Dad was waiting. His Lexus sat in the yard like a black beetle, doors open, wipers still going in the downpour. He stood on the porch in a $1,000 raincoat, arms folded, face carved from stone. Two men I didn't know flanked him, big, thick-necked, the kind of hired muscle that costs more per day than I used to make in a month. He saw me pull up, saw the hard set of my jaw through the windshield, and something in his posture shifted. Not fear, not yet. Calculation. I stepped out into the rain. Water sluiced off my hat brim, soaked my shirt in seconds. Dad raised his voice over the thunder. You look like a man who made a choice. I did. He lifted the red flash drive between two fingers. Then you know I still hold cards. You hold copies, I said, walking toward him slow. I hold originals. And a dead man's testimony. And enough cash to hire 10 lawyers better than yours before breakfast. The muscle shifted, hands moving inside coats. I kept walking. Dad's eyes flicked to them, a tiny shake of his head. Not yet. I stopped at the bottom step. Rain hammered the tin roof above us like gunfire. You can take the ranch over my dead body, I told him. And even then, the trust reverts to the Nature Conservancy. Every acre. You get nothing but lawsuits and headlines. His jaw worked. You'd burn it all down just to spite me? No, I said. I'd save it to spite you. Lightning cracked, lit his face white. Then he did something I never expected. He dropped the red drive on the porch boards and crushed it under his heel. Fine, he said quietly. Keep your dirt and your memories. I'll walk away. Just like that. The muscle looked confused. One of them started to speak. Dad silenced him with a look. I didn't buy it for a second. He stepped down into the rain, came close enough I could smell his cologne under the ozone. Close enough to whisper for only me. You think this is over because you found his little insurance policy? His voice was pure venom. I've been bleeding this place for 25 years. You'll never find all the pipes. And one day when you're broke and tired and alone, I'll still be here. Waiting. He smiled, patted my cheek like I was 6 years old again. See you around, son. He climbed into the Lexus. The muscle followed. They drove away slow, tires hissing on wet gravel, taillights disappearing into the gray curtain of rain. I stood there until the storm passed and the sun came out angry and clean. 3 weeks later the ranch was quieter than it had ever been. I paid off the hospital, the equipment notes, the back taxes, all of it. Hired 2 new hands who didn't mind that their boss sometimes talked to the wind like an old man was walking beside him. Fixed the north fence myself, same as I promised. Dad vanished. New wife, new kids, new zip code. The kind of disappearing rich men are good at. But every transfer that still trickled into strange accounts got traced, frozen, and redirected. Every shell company got a polite letter from a law firm in Austin that didn't bill by the hour. Every co-conspirator woke up to federal agents who'd received anonymous packages the week before. He never saw my name on any of it. Grandpa taught me how to fight quiet. 6 months later I was in the barn, shoeing a colt, when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered. Heavy breathing, then his voice, thin now. Broken. They took everything, he said. House, cars, accounts. Even the goddamn boat. I'm in a studio apartment, Ethan. A studio. I let him talk. Let him cry. Let him beg. When he ran out of words, I said the only thing that mattered. You taught me family is everything, I told him. Grandpa just taught me whose family I actually belonged to. I hung up. That night I rode up to the hill where we buried him. Sat against the headstone with a six-pack and the dogs and watched the sun bleed out across 3,000 acres that would never belong to anyone but us again. The wind carried his voice, or maybe I just wanted it to. You did good, boy. I smiled until it hurt. Some betrayals don't end in screaming or gunshots. Some end in silence, so complete a man can hear his own empire crumble one brick at a time. And some victories aren't loud. They're the sound of a gate latching at dusk, cattle lowing soft in the pasture, boots on worn porch boards, and the quiet knowledge that the roots you were born to run too deep to ever be sold. I still run this ranch. I still fix fence and pull calves and cuss the weather. But every morning I drink coffee on the same porch, and every evening I ride the same hills, and every night I sleep under the same roof my great-grandfather built with his own hands. And somewhere out there, a man who shares my blood but none of my soul is learning what alone really means. The land kept its promise. Grandpa kept his. And I kept mine. If this story hit you somewhere deep, if you felt that fire, that grief, that hard-won peace, do me a favor. Hit that like button. Subscribe. Ring the damn bell. Because there are more stories coming, men and women who were betrayed, who bled, who rose up and took back what was theirs. And I'll be right here telling them true. Until then, remember this. Sometimes the quietest revenge is simply outliving the poison. Sometimes healing doesn't roar. It grows, slow and green and stubborn, through stone and storm and time. And sometimes the strongest thing a man can do is stay rooted. See you in the next one.